Good evening, everyone. We're just going to give a few minutes to make sure that we have quorum and we'll begin the meeting. Thank you for being here. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the March 4th, 2021 meeting of CB11's Environment, Open Space and Parks Committee. My name is Jessica Elliott, and I'm the chair of the committee. This meeting is called to order at 6:33 p.m. Tonight, we are joined by Assistant District Manager Carly Wine, the staff liaison to our committee. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. 1, no one may speak until granted the floor. 2, Community Board 11 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. If you click the participants icon, the participants panel should appear and you should find the raise hand function there. If you still have technical difficulty, you may click the chat icon and relay your difficulty to the staff. The chat function should not be used for CB11 business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you're having or to state in writing information like an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. When a member is given the floor to speak, I will identify you and you can unmute yourself so that you can speak. Please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. Members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the subjects on the agenda, please raise your hand through Zoom and wait to be recognized. We will now take attendance by roll call. Board members, you can unmute yourselves and answer present when your name is called.
Collier.
Here.
Elliott.
Present.
Encarnacion.
Here.
Giordano. Heredia. Lee.
Present.
Mastrada. Francis. Okay, we'll go back to her. McCullough. Quinones.
Present.
Schuler.
Present.
Francis?
Yes, I'm present.
Okay, got you now. And Wiltshire Clement. Oh, it looks like she's connecting to the mic. So we'll give her a moment. Michelle, once you're able to speak, just feel free to. Michelle?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay. I was having a hard time connecting today.
no problem.
And we got Malik as well.
Okay, noted. We have quorum.
Thank you, Carly. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and was posted online. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda as stated. Committee members, if you would object to adopting the agenda, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. The minutes from our last meeting were distributed to committee members ahead of time by the board office. If there is no objection, we will adopt the minutes from that meeting. Committee members, if you object to adopting the minutes, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Seeing no objections, the minutes from the last full board meeting are adopted. They will soon be available on the CB11 website. The minutes of tonight's meeting. And we'll move to announcements. Oh, actually, informational updates. So sorry, we're working through a new system here. So we'll begin with Randall's Island Park Alliance.
Good evening, everybody. It's Tom Harnish from the Randall's Island Park Alliance, and I'm also joined on the Zoom by Anna Kemeny, who is our Public Programs Associate. Just a brief update. We are excited that the weather is turning warmer, and so our ball fields will be opening up for the spring season on March 17th for low and moderate risk sports. And so the Parks Department has been actively permitting those fields for the spring and even summer sessions since about mid-January. We are currently awaiting direction from the Mayor's Office and Parks Department concerning special event permits for large outdoor events in the park, given the governor's updated order yesterday, increasing capacity for those events. We are excited to have coming onto the island at the end of April through the fall, 2 sculptures from the artist Ruben Robier and from the Tagliatella Gallery in Chelsea. These 2 sculptures will be installed and on display. The first sculpture is entitled Dream Machine 2. It's a 13-foot tall fiberglass sculpture of butterfly wings to be installed on the north end of the island. And this is being done in consultation with the family of Brendan Mitchell, who is the little boy who tragically drowned off the north end of Randall's Island back in September. And this is being placed there in his memory. The second piece is entitled Peacemaker, and it's also a fiberglass sculpture of interlocking doves, symbolizing peace that will greet visitors entering the island via the 103rd Street footbridge. We'll also, this summer, we'll be participating through New York City Parks and the Department of Youth and Community Development in the Summer Youth Employment Program and the Ladders for Leaders program. So we'll have 8 summer youth working with us and 1 Ladders for Leaders intern. And now, if I could, I'd like to ask Anna Kemeny, my colleague, to give us just a brief update about our smaller free public programs that we have scheduled for the upcoming season.
Hello, thanks for having me tonight. So Randall's Island will be returning to some limited, in accordance with state and city guidelines, in-person programming, as well as continuing to offer hybrid and virtual options to allow safety, but we'll be offering walking and biking tours of the island, exploring the wetlands, urban farm, gardens, and more, as well as art programming and nature exploration out in the park, and weekly yoga and on Tuesdays and rotating fitness on Thursdays. That will be on Zoom starting in April and then out in the park from May through September. As well this year, we've added a literacy program. We are meeting on Zoom every other Thursday right now. We're starting a new book next Thursday, so it's a good time to join. And we will be expanding that to offer monthly readings of children's literature in the park during the summer season. We'll also be hosting volunteers during the week and on weekends. That is open to individuals to sign up. We are accepting registration and applications for that now on our website. And we're looking forward to taking advantage of the outdoor space that we have, give folks a safe, fun, hopefully rejuvenating place to spend some time as it gets warmer.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Go ahead, Michelle.
I would just be interested in the name of the book that is going to be coming up this Thursday, as well as the age group for the volunteers. Are the age group as well going to be for the youth?
Great questions. I did not mention the name because I don't remember, but I will look it up and
Okay.
I'll send that in the chat so folks can see.
That was why you hesitated. Okay, sorry about that.
Yes, no, but great question. And I believe all of the books we are reading they are available through the New York Public Library, just as an option for folks if you don't want to buy a physical copy of the book. And the age group for volunteers, for that we are limiting that to adults. But
Oh, okay. So adults, as in what age group does the adult start?
Good question.
18 and
Yeah, we're
over.
saying over 18, 18 and up, really.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm asking specifically for 20-year-olds. That's why.
Yes, we would accept 20-year-olds. Yes. And we do also, I should mention, offer a group volunteer programming as well. So if you have a group, you can get in contact with us and set up a day to do a volunteer program. And we do accept youth groups for that programming.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I'll find that book title.
Thank you, Anna. And thank you, Michelle. Are there any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Great. I will move on to New York City Parks.
Good evening, everybody. Hello.
Hi, Sheena.
Hi. We got a few things going on. Steve asked me to let everybody know the 284 million for the projects happening along the FDR Drive. They're working out the logistics, and soon as they make it available to him, he'll make it available to us, to me, and I'll provide it to you on the breakdowns. But they're working it out now. So as soon as that information is made available, I'll pass it on. I'm also involved with the Ladders for Leaders, as well as the SYEP. We're going to have this summer. And we're opening up for summer seasonals. We opened it up to the public last week, so they can go online and apply for a summer seasonal job. I don't know how many are available. It doesn't state, so as many as people that can apply to get in. they can go to the NYC Parks under opportunities, and they can apply um, through that website. On March 11th, we'll be opening up the Thomas Jefferson Playground inside Tom Jeff Park. So the new playground will be made available on March 11th. We are accepting special events permits for the summer with limited people, but I guess as each month goes on and the mayor's office will allow us more and more people to attend. I think the groups are 50 for now, but it can increase. I'm sure it probably will increase once more vaccinations and the COVID levels go down. We probably open up more, but for now it's 50 people per area. And we're having we're accepting some volunteer groups throughout District 10 and 11, and we're going to have them come out and help us get some of our parks spruced up for the summer season. And that's about all. If anybody have any questions, I'm willing to take.
Thank you, Sheena. Are there any questions from the board? Malik, go ahead.
Hey Sheena, how you doing?
Okay.
Thank you for the updates. I just want to know, do y'all have any expectations on the opening of parks as far as like basketball tournaments and soccer, baseball, any of those different type of, do y'all have any expectations for the summer as it surely approaches?
The events are open. They're open. Basketball is open to permits. People have been submitting their permits for basketball this summer, and soccer and all other events that we have. All the events are open. It's just a minimum because of COVID. But as we get along, it's probably going to open up more. But the events are open. The ball fields, all of that stuff is open already. It's been open for a while now.
Great. Thank you, Malik. Any questions from the public? Stacy?
Not a question, but I just wanted to tell Sheena that the playground looks awesome. I was there this past weekend checking it out with my nephews to see if we could get in yet. And they sadly stared at all the beautiful new equipment, but it looks amazing. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, it is. It's beautiful. They did a great job.
Thank you so much, Stacy. Any other questions from the public? Seeing no hands, we'll move on to Marcus Garvey Park. Thank you so much, Sheena.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
We do have an item coming up later in for parks, so we can send it to you later, or if you'd like to stay on.
Okay, I'll wait on. I'll hold on.
Thank you. Marcus Garvey Park. Jane. All right, I don't see Jana on. Is there anyone else from New York City Parks for Marcus Garvey Park? Debbie, do you have your hand up for that?
No, I was wondering if Sheena was going to jump off, because if she was, I was going to ask her a question.
Okay, she said she's going to stay on for now because we have some business later on in the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll move forward to Marcus Garvey Park Alliance.
Not much. The marketing materials, the map of East Harlem with the public art park to park, should go to the printer this week, and hopefully by the end of this month, we'll be ready for distribution. That's it for me.
Great. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Great. We'll move forward to Pelham Fritz Recreation Center.
I'm not quite sure if Sherry jumped on, but the center is still I'll just answer. The center is still um under, capital renovation. It actually hasn't officially started yet. But soon, but soon. And I'll give you some updates about a little bit about Marcus Garvey Park. We're in preparation of trying to work with, well, we've been working with Department of Homeless Services on getting some services for the homeless that's been sleeping on the stage. The weather's been really bad. And we've worked really hard on trying to get some individuals into shelters, and so we worked really hard on trying to get that. Hopefully, I don't want to spoil this, but by next month, I probably have some even better news. But I want to jinx this, so I'm going to let it be for now and announce it next month.
Thank you, Shayna. I guess Shuri was in the attendees, so she was promoted to panelist. Is there anything you'd like to add, Shuri? Okay. Are there any questions from the board about Marcus Garvey Park or Pelham Fritz? Any questions from the public? Great. We'll move on to Friends of the East River Esplanade.
Everyone, 3 updates. We will be sending our letter to the mayor thanking him for the $284 million on March 9th, which is next week. And then the preliminary budget meeting will be happening. So we are going to submit the letter as testimony for the importance of adding the $284 million to the 21-22 budget. Secondly, we're working on starting a youth fishing program. This was something we were supposed to do in 2020, along with the El Barrio bait station, but we couldn't do it. So we're working on putting that together now, and it's something that will be open up to kids of all ages, socially distanced. We'll figure all of that out at some point, but it will take place in East Harlem on the Esplanade near the bait station, if we can coordinate this. So we're out there getting a little bit of funding, and we're going to get some instructors and some equipment and get something out there for the kids in the springtime. And then thirdly, last night our board, we all met and we talked about participating in the Photoville exhibition or Photoville Festival. And if you guys don't know what that is, it's a photo festival that spans all 5 boroughs. It lasts for 3 weeks, and it's free outdoor art installations where there's giant photographs posted and people can go and look at them and check them out. And we'd like to include the Esplanade in that. And so in discussion with Parks, they figured out a way to create these structures on the Esplanade safely so that people can see them. And we are targeting between 102nd Street and 114th Street. On the Esplanade to post this. And the great thing is we'll be able to choose a local photographer or submit a few local photographers as our suggested photographer for the project. So if anybody has any suggestions or ideas, please contact me through Jessica, or you can contact me through Esplanade Friends. And that's it.
Great. Thank you so much, Stacy. Are there any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Great. Thank you so much, Stacy.
Thank you.
Move on to Friends of the Harlem Park Art Alliance.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all. So we have a few updates. We have 2 programs coming up. We put in permits for a National Poetry Month kickoff event in April, on April 11th, and we're also looking to do an Earth Day event on April 4th. April 24th. I'm sorry. Where we're asking folks to join us by sending a love letter to the Earth. So what we're going to do is invite people just to write something, a message about climate change or something like that, and just share that. And use it as an opportunity to raise awareness about climate change. So we hope that this event will grow and that other partners will join and see this as an annual event to raise awareness about climate change. And the artist Susan Stair who previously installed the Roots of Fire, has offered to volunteer to lead workshops on doing some arts and crafts. We've got some sprouts coming up, yay! But we don't have water to water them, so that's a whole nother discussion. We want to revisit the discussion or the decision on the opening and closing of the park on weekends, because it was a temporary measure, and as things progress with reopening, we hope that that will be revisited and go back to having the park open later. The other thing is that I want to be able to get a better understanding of what the Parks Department is looking to plan in the park. So I would like to find out more about that in terms of summer programming, so that we can align and support initiatives down the road. And one of those initiatives is like Movies Under the Stars. I'd like to request that the schedule for, if at all, occurs in the park, that it happens in the summer, because what has happened in the past 2 times that we've had Movies Under the Stars, it occurred in September and people were already going back to school. And we'd like to also see if we have the opportunity to provide input on some of the movie selections. We're looking at doing some It's My Park stuff, and I scribbled something and I don't know what I wrote. So I think that's, how you do that? So we're hoping that folks join us on doing something at your own spot on April 24th for Earth Day, and think about like just sending a love letter to about climate change, or even think about if there's some legislation that is currently needs support, that you kind of collect signatures or something like that, so that we kind of keep this as an opportunity to continue the dialogue about climate change. Otherwise than that, we're excited about the new spaces that have been created with the clearing out in the park. We're super excited about that. I have to follow up with Robert and the gardening team to see, what are the plans for anything, but then it all comes back to water. Like, how do we water the stuff? Because I've planted so many things and they sprouted and died. Even though I was going across the street to the school and kind of hustling them for water, that was just a bit much. And I think that there should be something to address that issue. And we're looking forward to, in the summer, relaunching the Green Vibrations research project, where we want to have input from people in the community to give them an update on what has happened since the first time that we put together the report and the recommendations. And one of the recommendations was to get the back fence on the statement of needs. So I'm happy that that's on the list. And we look forward to seeing how we can continue having dialogues with folks in the community.
Great. Thank you so much, Debbie. Are there any questions from the board? Go ahead, Michelle.
I have 2 things. One is not a question, one is a suggestion. If space is available, is it possible to collect rainwater, like a small container of rainwater, and that it would drain off, and have it graded on the top so that nothing can get into it, so that it could water your sprouts or the different areas?
That's something to consider.
And the second thing was, can I have the website for the participation for the love letters for climate change?
Well, that's under construction. We do have a Facebook page and an IG account. What you can do is, you can just email me at drq104@yahoo or a Gmail, and we'll just see how it goes from there.
Okay, because I'd like to spread the word out on that.
Mm-hmm.
Could you put that information in the chat for me, please?
Sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And we've like I said, we've submitted different I figured out what it meant when I scribbled collaborations.
It just took a little prompting.
It you know, we were always grateful for our collaborations with the Marcus Garvey Park Alliance. We look forward to new art installations. We are looking to work with the Caribbean Cultural Center, African Diaspora Institute, that wants to do something to celebrate the anniversary of the installation of the COVID memorial wall. We've secured Pastor Kimberly Wright, who is going to lead a prayer circle for the families. We're going to invite them back to, because we know it's going to be a year. And the theme is, the theme may be like not getting over it, but getting through it, so to speak. And then we also have a collaboration that's pending with the LGBT Center of New York, where we want to have a Gay Pride kickoff event on Sunday, June 6th. And we're looking to maybe do some type of resource fair or something that promotes more education and awareness about it's called the construction of identity, addressing gender fluid issues and what does that mean for folks, and also looking at LGBTQ seniors and their issues. So we're kind of excited about that.
That sounds really great. Would you be sending it off to the different schools?
We're gonna try. What am I doing? I'm writing and talking at the same time. So yeah, we would definitely do some outreach, and we just have a lot of stuff that's kind of floating around, and we're hoping that it gets roots and that they become annualized events to activate programming in the park. So we're excited about the collaborations, and we're grateful for the support.
Perfect. Thank you, Debbie. And thank you, Michelle. There's one hand up in the public. Gail? Feel free to unmute yourself.
No, I don't have my hand up.
Oh, okay. Great, thank you. All right, thank you, Debbie.
You're welcome.
And we'll move on to Central Park Conservancy.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you all. I'm going to see if I can share my screen. I have a few images to share. Are you all seeing the screen of the Harlem Mirror Project?
Yes.
Great. So I'm here to give a quick update on the Harlem Mirror Project, which is the project to re-envision the Lasker Pool and Rink at the Harlem Mirror in the context of a restoration of the landscape, which we presented to the community boards in not last fall, but the fall before, fall of 2019, and got approval from the Landmarks Commission and the Public Design Commission early part of 2020. Since then, we've just been working really on kind of the technical development of the design, and also going through the regulatory approvals and permitting process. And so the design has kind of further evolved, and the details have been more developed. I know that you guys have a tight agenda tonight, so I was just going to actually update you all on kind of the most significant development, or the thing that sort of actually changed the most, which is the work actually in and on the edge of the Harlem Mirror. But I will say that there are kind of just some more details that we could get into if and when you have time and are interested in just sort of seeing how the project has shaped up in general. For those who may recall, this is kind of where we left off. This is the southwest corner of the Harlem Mirror. This is the corner of the Mirror here. And this is the kind of curve of the drive as it comes from east to west downhill. This would be north is at the bottom of the screen where my cursor is, and south is at the top of the screen. Just a refresher for those who are familiar with the project is that the existing pool and rink kind of fills this whole space here and really blocks the circulation from the Harlem Mirror back to, this is an arch, a stone arch, Huddlestone Arch, back into the North Woods. It also blocks, and we talked a lot about this in the initial kind of review, one of the major problems with the way that it was built, in addition to sort of blocking the views and circulation and the connection for people, it blocked the flow of water. So there's a water course in the North Woods, the lock, that goes under this arch, this stone arch that goes under the drive, and that historically emptied into the mere. And actually, when the facility was built, it blocked all of that and put it in a culvert that doesn't really work, and it's always flooded and always been a problem. So a big goal was to redesign the pool and rink, which is what you see here, make it longer and narrower, push the building, which currently goes this way and blocks everything, push it actually into the slope with a green roof across it. And that's all pretty much just the details have developed along the lines of what you see here. There was also a portion of the project that in addition to continuing and doing sort of in a better designed way, the swimming and skating, the recreation that happens in the facility. We all know the park was designed itself to be a place for recreation, kind of in a more natural environment. And so part of the project was we really did want to facilitate that. And to create an element to both sort of naturalize the condition in this part of the mere here, where the stream course is reconnected, add freshwater marshland plantings in this area, which would make sort of a transitional environment in the mere. It would also help to kind of filter the nutrients out of the water. We have some water quality issues, so would also create more diverse habitat. And then to facilitate enjoyment of that by creating a boardwalk element in the water in this portion of the mere. Around, there's kind of one large island here. We would break it up and have this boardwalk around. That would be a place for fishing, for kind of observing the wildlife, boat launches. There historically was boating on the mere, but it got to be a very large concession with boats that overwhelmed the mere. And so what we wanted to do was have a place where we could do boat launches. Some of you may know the rangers, the park rangers, do a canoeing program with kids from the public schools. We'd like to kind of augment that with more programming. So it would be kind of a focus of a place for that. In our further development and also in dialogue with the State Department of Environmental Conservation, which regulates all of the water bodies in the park, all the lakes and ponds are actually considered waters of the state, and the state regulates them from an environmental perspective. So there's some discussion and dialogue. And there was a real interest, first of all, in not breaking up the large island that exists. Even though in the long term, it would create kind of more diverse habitat, there was kind of concern about the interim interruption, and it's such great habitat now. And also just how they kind of consider, even though adding the marshland plantings makes more diverse habitat, they don't ever want that to be at the expense of less open water. So they'd like to have more wetlands, but if you have, in order to do that, you also need to create more open water to actually offset it. So in consideration of that, what we actually have proposed, and this is just to kind of show you, these were some inspirational shots of the idea of a boardwalk through marshland and watercourse, is to actually, instead of having this pergola that we had shown and the boardwalk be floating kind of out and over the mere, and instead of breaking up that large island, leave that island intact and actually create the boardwalk element on the same alignment of what is currently a path. It's actually not a historic path. It is a path that was, the water on the south shore of the mere used to go right up to the rocks. And so the idea would be to actually excavate that fill from the 1940s, when at that point, the whole mere was encased in a stone retaining wall, and fill was added. And then this path was created, and this is the only place when we restored the mere in the 1990s that we didn't take out the retaining wall because the path was there. So what we're proposing is, and starting here at this pergola, we would take a portion of the path, will become a boardwalk. And then this is continuing. So again, the pergola and the boardwalk, water going on straight up to the edge. And instead of concentrating those marshland plantings just where the stream meets the water course, spread it out and have just an experience of the path kind of turning into a boardwalk where you'd be walking over open water and walking then between marshland plantings and create that experience that way. We can still do the boating and canoeing programs from the pergola here. And fishing as well, and fishing and just kind of I think a really nice experience of walking along the shoreline here. So that's the nutshell version. And we're happy to come back and show, we do kind of have more renderings of it and some more details about the pool and rink aspect of the project as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Lane. Just curious, does the boardwalk extend around the entire length of the mirror? Or is it just in the sections that you've shown?
So it's just in this section that I've shown, which right now is, just this kind of first outcrop to the, if I go back, to the, just to the east of the facility. We will actually hope that we will have an opportunity to extend it, not around the whole mirror, but further along that southern shoreline, which is that path and I'm sorry, I don't have a larger in this presentation, don't have a larger pulled back view, but for folks who are familiar, the whole kind of south shore of the mirror has a path that kind of goes pretty tight along that edge, and that's got kind of the retaining wall against it. That first section that I just showed you would be done as part of this project. We also are working with the city, the Department of Environmental Protection, and the Parks Department on another project, sort of related project, to recirculate water through all of the water bodies in the north end of the park, which is the pool, the West 100th Street pool that flows then into the lock through the North Woods and into the Mere. And so we're working on actually a really exciting project that is becoming very real. So that would give us an opportunity as part of that project when we have to kind of do some work to make the shoreline more resilient in relation to that, to actually continue it along that shoreline, just the south shoreline.
Great. Well, it's all very exciting. I'm excited to see this. And I imagine, I think I remember that the original concept for that boardwalk was to have some ice skating and things on it. Is that been removed?
No, that'll still be doable. So, so what we would do is, and really from this whole portion where this pergola is here is where we would do it sort of on more of an event basis, seasonally install the synthetic ice and have for some period during the winter months where we could kind of host as a program or an event where the synthetic ice, and you could either bring your own skates or you could get skate rentals from the regular rink that will be in the pool. And so from this portion down here, and then this seating area here will be a turnaround. So it'll kind of have stanchions between, and it'll be sort of like an ice ribbon. We're looking at there's models of it, of people skating like through wetlands and, through on ponds with sort of paths shaved out. And so it would be, and this is actually will be a longer run than it was when it was in the Mere. And then if we actually get to do those two future segments in the future, it'll be a really nice long run. So
great. Awesome. Are there any questions from the board? Go ahead, Michelle.
I really like that idea. It's the ice, the synthetic ice to go around. It's very similar to what's happening is it in Toronto?
In Toronto.
In Toronto. Yes. And I don't know where the idea came from. Maybe you got it from there, but it's just a really great idea to enhance the community. I was curious to find out about the plantings around the pool. Are those added plantings decreasing the size of the pool? And is that added cement around the pool area?
So
decreasing the size of the actual water?
Sure. Well, so the size of the pool is longer and narrower, and really in order to this is a berm. So this is not just flat. The pool is kind of surrounded in a berm so that you are kind of surrounded by landscape, so that the pool kind of blends in with the landscape. And in order to kind of recreate this stream course and the circulation, the pool does have to get smaller. It's still a very large pool. It's still Olympic size. And it's currently the 8th largest pool in the city. It will still be the 8th largest pool in the city. But really it's more about to create this stream course and the circulation, we have to grade up to this and then have this be kind of a smaller, a narrower room inside to get all of this through here.
Okay, I really understand the whole burn thing because of the readings that we had to do for something else.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to make sure that it was still Olympic size so that we are in the running to be in the Olympics for those children and young adults that are
Yeah.
wanting to exercise that way.
Still Olympic size and still one of the few pools in the city where we have 50-meter laps.
I'm very excited about this, and so is my family who is listening in.
I think we might have lost Lane.
Sorry.
Was it me who broke up?
Yeah, I think
It
so.
is me. Okay, I missed that whole end part, but just for
I just said I
Michelle,
was very
and
excited, and so is my family about this project.
great. And just so everyone knows, we had previously already, supported the project and the change of size of the pool and everything. So we're just taking comments on the proposed changes. But thank you so much for those questions. Are there any other questions from the board? From the public? All right, Lane, I know we talked about maybe having you come back next month. We're looking at having a joint committee meeting with CB8. So I'm not sure if that would be something that could be presented to both. I know you had already presented to them
Yeah,
about
we're
this.
actually, we are presenting them to them next week. So it might make sense if there's like a meeting coming up down the line where you just have a little more time so that we're not repeating for them what we're doing next week.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So we'll, but probably be later on then. But thank you for this update. We really appreciate it. And it's a great project. Looking forward to it. Thanks for being here.
Good to see everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. So we'll move to our presentation section. First, we have a presentation by NYCEDC, just an update on the Metropolitan Hospital flood wall art design concept.
Good evening, everybody. This is Miguel Luciano. I'm the artist that was selected for the artwork on the hospital project. Bio, did you want to say, I see you listed here. Did you want to say anything before I start?
No, I think you should just start. We've been here before, so yeah.
Yeah. So I'm presenting an update. There's been a change in the artwork design that I'd like to share, and so I'm going to share my screen. And tell me if this is all sharing the PDF on screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm just going to kind of go quickly through the overview of this because we've seen it before. This is sort of some background work of mine. Sculpture at a museum in Puerto Rico, sculpture in the Smithsonian American Art Museum.
I think we're still on the first page. I'm not sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me see if I can get this to work here.
It could just be me. I see the third page, or the page is changing now.
Are they changing now? Okay. So I'm just going to scroll quickly through some of these background images. These are from previous works of mine, public sculptures in museums from Puerto Rico, from the Smithsonian American Art Museum in DC, interactive public art projects, and other sort of like community-based sculpture and projects that are part of my practice here, commemorating the Puerto Rico Swing Club in Brooklyn. Just for an overview of the project itself and where it's located, everybody knows where it's located here. I will mention the one thing that I've been thinking a lot about in this project is how the campus of the hospital itself on 97th Street, really it stretches from 97th to 99th, between 1st and 2nd, really it anchors in some ways the southeastern border of East Harlem. It's a prominent sort of area. And I've been thinking a lot about that. I also live a block away here at PS 109, but have been thinking about how it sort of holds space that actually marks one of the borders of the neighborhood and how that's become very important to me to think about. This is the kind of overview of the flood wall and what the sort of perimeter of the hospital looks like right now. These are some of the just existing facades, 2nd Avenue, 99th Street, 1st Avenue, and finally 97th Street. These are all areas where the flood wall and the retractable gates are going to be installed. In the wall design, here you can see again sort of the way that this translates to the actual wall on the perimeter of the hospital. Here's an overview or an overhead view of the same wall. Here we can see where the artwork will be highlighted on the two most public facing walls, really, First Avenue and Second Avenue. And that's where, that has not changed. That's still where the artwork will be situated. And so I want to show some precedent images to show you what I've been thinking about. One of the projects I've been thinking most about is this public art project that took place here in East Harlem, Mapping Resistance, Young Lords in El Barrio, that featured the photography of Hiram Maristani, who is a local photographer, very important artist, and someone I've had the pleasure of collaborating with for several years. And so in this project, we took 10 images from Hiram's archive and turned them into billboard-sized images at or near the same location where they were taken 50 years ago to commemorate the 50-year anniversary of the Young Lords. So here's an example of one of the images that's still on view on 111th and Lexington Ave across from the People's Church on Young Lords Way. And I'm very proud that this is still up, but this is still a temporary image. These were all made to be temporary as a temporary public art project. And one of the things I thought about a lot after this project, especially because of the community engagement and response, was about the opportunity to make some of these images more permanent. And so that has influenced the thinking about this project quite a bit. Another example from that project of a community member on 3rd Avenue, 111th, literally pointing himself out in the photograph that was taken 50 years prior on the same block. And this kind of thing happened all the time, reminding us that this is very much a living history and that our community is very much still here that participated in this history. And so it was a testament to it that happened regularly in our project through the walking tours. This is one of the images of the garbage offensive that was featured on the hospital walls. And so this was on 99th Street, right across from the sanitation department. So the hospital, there's a precedent for images from this archival history actually being situated on the hospital walls. And so what I'm proposing is a bit different this time around, but still incorporates historic images from East Harlem, from the archive of Hiram Maristani into a new montage. This is another example of a previous project we did at the Center for Puerto Rican Studies Gallery at Hunter College on 119th, translating a historic photograph into a storefront window of the Young Lords with old and new imagery, really creating a dialogue between past and present. Some of the other images from Hiram's archive that I have loved for years, some of the most beautiful images of East Harlem's history, Children at Play on 111th Street. For me, they're the most important historic photographs of East Harlem. And there's a whole decade of photographs that that do not exist in any public archive in New York, and they have not been a part of any permanent public artwork in the city. Another classic photograph of kids playing in the hydrant. So that brings us to the current design. The current design, and I'll show you some details here, incorporates photographs that range from these images of children playing to our activist histories here in East Harlem. And for me, I was thinking very much about themes of joy and play, of resistance and love, and how that's really embodied in this archive. And I thought about it a lot when we did the previous projects, but here it became an opportunity to sort of integrate these themes into a larger presentation that for me represents a very proud sort of history of the community. And so here you're seeing some of the original photos that would be large scale photographs and these graphic translations in colored panels that are broken into halftones. This is a detailed photo of how some of those graphic panels break down. All of these images will be printed on glass in a ceramic frit that's permanently baked into the surface of the glass from behind. It's a couple layers thick. And so there is some dynamic sort of play with light in the color that's behind the glass in these halftone prints behind the glass. They're large kind of glossy images in this sense. Another sort of detail of the central section of the First Avenue wall. These are just a few details of these sections that again, translate some of the original photographs into kind of a graphic color halftone image. And how they will look scale-wise will be something like this in these renderings. They're situated, they become kind of like windows. They're inset into the wall with an internal sort of lighting that's built in above the images. And here's the Second Avenue wall, which is a montage of consecutive images that will run in the central section of the wall on Second Avenue. Another sort of detail what that looks like on site. Hard to see here. I'm just going to backtrack. And I would love to take any questions or comments.
So much, Miguel. We have one question from Debbie. Go ahead,
Hi,
Debbie.
Miguel, how are you?
Hey, Debbie, how are you?
You know, I understand the necessity of this and how important these images are. And one of the things that, and I like the other utilization of the petroglyphs and the other images. Would there be a way to incorporate them as a trim, maybe on the bottom or the top of the pictures? So that then it kind of becomes a little more, I don't know, not inclusive of other populations, but it kind of makes it seem like it's more of a thing. I don't know how to say it, but would you consider something like that?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the suggestion. I think that and I want to also just clarify, it wasn't that I didn't like the previous design. This for me was just a more powerful.
No, I'm not saying, no, I get it. I'm just saying, I like the utilization of this iconography in the images. You know, I wonder if they could be somehow included in that, in this current rendition.
Yeah,
For consideration.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I think I wouldn't include it directly in this particular imagery necessarily, but I have thought about it, and I think that, and I've thought about other places that it could be integrated, that we talked about previously on the campus, you know, like other ways that imagery could come forward. But it's really a different design proposal, so I'm not ruling it out, but I haven't figured out a way to do that. For me, the preference here was to really to reflect East Harlem's history in these walls.
I get it.
Yeah, and that it becomes a really large kind of mural of the history too, as you come up to East Harlem potentially from the east side. And for me, that's a really powerful idea to think of in this space.
And I also like the, you know, in terms with the Young Lords, the connection with the hospital, because, you know, the work that they did in the Bronx in the hospital, where they took over that hospital and they started the TB program and stuff like that.
Sure. And they were also involved in Metropolitan, I found out later, you know.
Yeah,
they organized toy drives for kids there. They did, right. There's all kinds of engagement that's not part of the popular history. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Hiram, also the photographer, his family is very connected to this hospital in many ways. The woman who's featured here is in this central image that I love. These are community members who are marching with the Young Lords, but they're really members of the community, live 2 blocks north of the hospital. And so these are very much images from the neighborhood's history that I mean, the thing I loved about the previous project, Mapping Resistance, is how proud it made people feel and still makes people feel to walk by them. And this is an opportunity to make some of these images permanent in our neighborhood.
Great, thank you so much, Debbie. Are there any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Great.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, everybody tonight. I appreciate your feedback.
Thank you, Miguel. Carly, there we go. I can't tell if my internet's slow, having issues tonight. Great. So our next presentation is by NYCEDC and New York City Parks regarding the Harlem River Greenway, 125th to 132nd Street.
Hi, Jessica. It's Len Greco from EDC. I'm pinch hitting for David tonight. He couldn't be with us. So I'm going to take us through the presentation. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Not yet.
Not yet?
There we go. It's pulling up.
Okay, good, got it. Okay, great. As I said, I'm Len from the New York City Economic Development Corporation. I'm in the capital program. Over there, there are a couple of people here from EDC tonight that Wahira Marta and Jennifer Montalvo are from our public affairs group, and Gail Rothstein, who is with us also from Capital. From Parks Department, we have Alda Chan, Ricardo Hinkle, and Sarah Nielsen. And we also have several members of the design team from Langen and from Star White House, as well as Edo Odotigbe, who is the artist that was recently selected to create the public art for the project site, and he's joined the design team. So I'm going to briefly go over the overarching plan, just to remind everybody of where the project site is and to let people know, maybe who haven't seen it before. And then we'll talk a little bit about schedule. We'll touch on some of the questions that were raised at the meeting when we were here last January, the questions about resiliency, the potential for a comfort station and ferry service. And then we're going to go into the design progress about where we are right now in the design. And I just wanted to sort of frame that and say that, you know, it's been a careful and deliberative process. We have multiple agencies involved. So of course, EDC and Parks certainly are at the table, but we also have DOT and TBTA, the Triborough Bridge and Tunnel Authority. And as you know, there are all these bridges and all different levels that are surrounding the site. And both DOT and TBTA need to gain access to their bridges through our site for maintenance and periodic inspections, things like that. And also TBTA has proposed a bicycle pedestrian ramp to come down from the RFK bridge that would land in the project site. And so we've been working with them on that. And so those items, you know, the maintenance paths and the bicycle pedestrian ramp become parts of the program, much like the playgrounds and basketball courts. And so what the design team has been doing is figuring out the right places on in the design where those items should go, and then stitch it together with a series of paths and bicycle paths as well. So we'll go through the design. And then so as we move along, you know, as we come and visit you in subsequent meetings, you'll see how the design progresses. And then lastly, you know, what we want to do is to begin the discussion around the public art that's going to be on the site. And as I said, we'll have Edo do it. He'll talk about his previous work and the public process that he used to bring those pieces to life. And then if it's okay, we'll take questions at the end and talk about next steps and when we'll come and visit you. That sound reasonable? Great.
Good.
I'm not sure, Gail was going to speak. I'm not sure if she has access to speak. So if that's something that you can give from your end, that would be great. Let's see. So can you see the next picture, right? The next slide? Great.
Yes.
So this is probably familiar to many of you. It's the overarching Manhattan Greenway, the Greenway all around the island of Manhattan. The red areas are where they are inland. The dotted lines are where there are still gaps up here at Esplanade Gardens and down by the UN. And then the section that we're talking about right here is 125th to 132nd Street. So again, more of a close-up on here. We've divided this up into 3 sections. The first section is 125th to 132nd down here, and that's where we're going to be repairing the seawall and installing the new park. And then the other 2 sections from 132nd to 145th and from 155th to up to Dykeman, it's just basically those are already publicly accessible areas of the Greenway, and there's an enormous amount of bulkhead reconstruction that has to happen in those areas. And then just briefly on the schedule, we hired the design team, Langen and Star White House, in 2019, and we also have Hunter Roberts now on as our construction manager. And then we were paused, of course, with the C19, and so thankfully we're back up and running. We came to visit you in January to show you our progress. We're hoping, and this is an aggressive schedule, that will be done with the design by the end of this year. And the design part is easier. It's getting the regulatory approvals from the DEC and the Army Corps of Engineers that tends to take a little bit of time. So we're hoping that we'll be done with all of that by the end of this year, bid the job in, at the end of this year, early next year, and begin construction. And I think because of the magnitude of the project, it's probably going to be a 3-year construction period. But it depends on, as you know, in many of the waterfront projects, sometimes there are periods where you can't work in the water because there are habitat, fish are migrating, and they don't want, DEC and Army Corps don't want that wildlife to be disturbed. So sometimes there are moratoria on when we can actually be in the water. So that's something that we may have to encounter and can't really predict what that will be yet and how it will affect the schedule. Okay, so I was going to hand it off to Alda at the moment to talk about the resiliency and the comfort station. Alda, did you want to jump in on that?
Hi, everyone. My name is Alda Chan. I'm with the Planning Division at New York City Parks. Wanted to quickly touch on a couple of things that we heard at the January meeting. One is that we got a lot of questions about how this site is going to be resilient. Just wanted to reiterate that we're planning on elevating the site approximately 2 or 2.5 feet for sea level rise. So we're targeting an elevation of 10.5. Currently, I think grade is around, average is around 6.25. It varies a bit across the site, but we are, I think, elevating, maybe it's some parts it's 8, some parts it's 6, but we're elevating for approximately 2.5 feet, but trying to get to 10.5 from sea level, from existing sea level. On comfort stations, we've heard a lot of conversations and comments about wanting to see a comfort station as part of the park when it's complete. Big picture, I think Len sort of walked through the map of all the different areas that we're targeting with this project, from the bulkhead restoration to the topside park. The priority for the funding is to make sure that we have a robust and resilient bulkhead, and then to provide the topside park for 125th to 132nd. Right now, as we're looking at the work that needs to be done with the bulkhead and putting the park on top, we don't have the budget for a standalone building in the flood zone within the context of this project. It would be something that we would need to seek future funding on. I just do want to highlight for folks that waterfront buildings and comfort stations, particularly in Manhattan, are pretty expensive. And they also require a lot of utility connections and water lines. And so sort of given the context of the budget that we have now, and then the overall financial environment that we're in from a city budget perspective, we don't have the budget within this project. That said, we do want to explore options for providing this amenity in the future through coordination with other private or public partners. And continuing to work with the community board to advocate for funding and figuring out what the best site for this is. Right now, from a Parks Department perspective specifically, I think many folks are aware that we're working on, I think it's procurement of the comfort station at Harlem River Park, so around 128th and 3rd Avenue. So right now with the current financial environment, it is a little difficult to justify getting funds for standalone comfort station, but we hear you that it's a priority. We want to work together to figure out how to get the funding for this in the future. But I do want to make clear that from what we're looking at with the bulkhead work and all the work that with the elevating the park and putting the topside amenities in, we don't think we have the budget for this current project. And that, I'm going to turn it over back to EDC on Ferry Landing.
Right. Jennifer Montalvo, did you want to address the ferry question that we had from the last meeting?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Jennifer Montalvo here with the Government and Community Relations team at EDC. I was not at the last meeting that you all had to discuss the ferry landing, but here just provide a little bit more context about the pier there. Earlier today, we shared the feasibility study with the committee. When that study was done a couple of years ago, there was a request to include this landing as part of that study. An extensive study was done to see if it would be feasible for us to do a landing there. Based on the research that was done and the study that was done at that time, the recommendation back was it wouldn't be as feasible for us to do a landing in East Harlem for a couple of reasons. One is the structural cost that would be needed to actually do the repairs at the landing. We would also need to do a really long pier in order to get the water depth that is needed for a ferry to come in. And also some research was done a little bit more to figure out the travel savings if we were to put it in a ferry. So as you all probably know and have experience with our ferry system, a lot of our landings really do save significant time for our riders, and hence why we implemented a ferry system in some of our landings and some of our locations. And to put one in East Harlem, it would only save riders about 7 minutes. And it would be 7 minutes faster to Lower Manhattan and a little bit slower to Midtown, just based on the stops and everything else. So at this time, we're not recommending, just based on those 3 criterias, of putting a ferry landing in East Harlem at this moment.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. So let's move forward into the park design update. I think Alda, it's back to you, right?
Yes. All that said with the updates, we actually have good news for you tonight. And we wanted to give you an update on the park design for the area from 125th to 132nd. We're here in January after to say, hey, the project's not paused, and we heard that you want to get frequent updates from us. We're here. We'll be back again pretty soon. But here's just sort of quick update on where we are. Next slide, Len. The site isn't publicly accessible, and so some folks may be aware of what it looks like and where it is, but we wanted to set the stage for the conversation about the design update by just sharing some existing conditions photos. This is looking north from the 3rd Avenue Bridge. It connects to Harlem River Park in the north and to East River Esplanade in the south. The site also, next slide, has some really interesting spaces underneath bridges and infrastructure, a lot of which we are learning more about, constraints and maintenance needs, but we're really excited about the types of opportunities here. We also have a new access point at 127th at grade, this is what it looks like. And so we want to talk a little bit more about what that might look like from a park perspective. As many of you know, in 2017 and 2018, Parks led a concept planning process to build a framework and concept plan for what the community wanted to see in this future park. And we spoke with the community board and many of your neighbors at a series of outreach meetings, tabling events, etc. Next slide. And we wanted to just take a quick snapshot of what we heard back then with the concept plan, and hopefully these are still a lot of the same goals and priorities. One being that folks wanted a safe, accessible, and well-lit park, wanted to see a lot of art and cultural opportunities, separated bike and ped pathways, as well as programming that's family-friendly, inclusive, and really activates the space. Next slide. Okay, so I think we have shown this 2018 concept plan before. Just wanted to use this as a starting off point before we go to our next slide about the updates. But during the concept plan, we really started looking at this long linear 7-acre site in sort of zones and areas, and we'll continue to look at those same zones as part of the updated design diagrams. But just want to situate everyone here. The left would be the southernmost end of the site, so by 125th, and then on your right is the area up by 132nd. And that little triangle entry is 127th. So we have a list of the programming that came out of the outreach during the 2018 concept plan, and we heard a lot of support for things like active recreation under the bridge, a fishing area, playground, passive lawn, seating area near the entrance, more lawns, dog run, playground, barbecue area, table games. And this is what we'll continue to use as a framework for the updated plan. Maybe next slide. Now we're learning a little bit more about the site. I think in the past when we were here, we had said we want to make the bulkhead infrastructure not in great shape. We want to make sure that we are building it so that it is robust, resilient, lasts a long time. Not sure how much we can do on the top side. It may be a really basic park. But now that we've figured out what we need to do on the marine infrastructure side, we're really excited because we think we can do more than just a basic park. And we want to talk to you today about some of the programming that we think we heard from the concept plan, seems to align with some of the more recent conversation we've heard, and then also outline the potential future programs that might be able to come and play in the future when there's additional funding, and making sure that we're planning around that and not precluding it. So we'll walk through these same zones in a little more detail and starting to identify what fits within the existing budget. Okay, so starting from the southernmost end at 125th and under the RFK bridge that TBTA has authority over, similar to the concept plan, proposing some active recreation uses underneath the bridge to really liven up and activate the space. Actually, I think back in January when we were here, we heard a comment about adult fitness and that it's a priority in this community. We're proposing that we put some of the adult fitness underneath the bridge just to really liven up the space. Perhaps something like half and full court basketball as well. Thinking about this as more of a zone for adult and teen fitness and active uses. During the concept plan, for folks who remember that or have seen drawings, there was a discussion about a skate park and climbing structures. But since then, we've actually had more dialogues with the Triborough Bridge and Tunnel Authority, as well as DOT, about understanding what operation and maintenance needs there are for underneath the bridges and the overpasses. And so things with a lot of elevation actually present some challenges for making sure that their maintenance trucks can actually get in there. We also, as many folks know, have a skate park now at Tom Jeff. So this is sort of an example of how we're making updates to the design and building upon what we know from the concept plan and the site conditions that we're collecting now. So that's the area under the bridge, and we have a little chart underneath that sort of lists out what we're thinking big picture at this point for each of the areas. Moving north to the light green area, we're thinking that that larger space could be a lawn, maybe have some fishing area closer to the water, perhaps something like an amphitheater or seating area. This is pretty consistent with the concept plan, just having a space where people can really enjoy views of the water, and it's a little less programmed here. Len mentioned earlier that TBTA is planning on building a pedestrian ramp off of the north side of the RFK bridge, and we're going to coordinate with them on this. We think it's going to be exciting to have another connection to activate the space and connect to Randall's Island. And we think TBTA will be coming to the board soon with more information as they figure out their plans for that. But we're sort of holding a placeholder here for it to land somewhere in this area. Next slide. Moving north, in the concept plan, this was called the 127th Street entrance and Meadow Walk. This is still going to be the entry area with some space for some sort of entry plaza and seating. Maybe there could be some sort of splash pad or water feature. We noted before, there isn't currently funding available for restrooms, but in the concept plan that this was where we had put a placeholder. And I think I was mentioning before that Parks is currently working on procurement for a new comfort station at Harlem River Park. It's actually somewhere close to that draft text. So that's something we're currently working on in this neighborhood. We recognize that folks want to have a comfort station that's accessible for users that are along the waterfront. We want to continue to talk to you about that and think about the needs for that. Moving north to the next slide. This would be the sort of northern program area. In the concept plan, it was called the Harlem Grove. And again, we have some more opportunity for programming and amenities here. We think this might be space for another type of lawn or passive area, maybe a site for the public artwork that Edo will be speaking a little bit more about. We heard that barbecue and picnic were really popular. So we think that some of that could be here and also activate this larger open space. And also not wanting to preclude some of the other programs that we've heard about in the concept plan process, like a dog run or a playground, should funding become available in the future. A reminder that things like dog runs need sort of community group to steward them. But, those are the types of programs we heard about in the past that, we're still trying to plan around when we think about the space. We have a couple precedent images on the next slide. So, just ideas of, things that we're inspired by, or to give a feel of what we're thinking about right now in terms of what the Esplanade and lighting may look like, a bikeway, thinking about some native plantings along the paths, lawns. Next slide, we have some more photos of some of the more active uses. So maybe something like an amphitheater or lawn type use, in addition to the passive lawns, barbecue and picnic tables, adult fitness, basketball. And then we had some photos of what a dog run might look like in a space that has a lot of this sort of overhead infrastructure, and then playgrounds. So we do, again, programs and ideas that we have heard very much from the recent concept plan process. We want to make sure that this is still on track with what the community needs and wants. We'll bring these photos back up during the Q&A and discussion after we have a presentation about the public art and artist.
Great, thanks, Alda. I'm going to turn it over to Gail Rothstein to talk about the artist selection process and to introduce Ado. So Gail Rothstein is she's in our capital group. She handles all of the entire agency's submissions to the Public Design Commission. So she's also an artist herself, and so gets very deeply involved in all of the public art projects that we do across the city. So Gail, can I turn it over to you?
Gail Rothstein, Carly, is
Right.
the correct Gail. We're working on it.
Thanks. And Edo, I was going to just turn the screen over to you. I'll to share from your computer your presentation.
Okay, am I up?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As Lynn mentioned, I'm the Director of Design Review and Liaison to the Public Design Commission. For this project, the committee, comprised of several Harlem cultural institutions, as well as representatives from the Architect, Parks Department, EDC, and Cultural Affairs, first assembled in February of 2020 to review an initial list of 17 artists. Having reviewed those portfolios, we chose a short list of 4 artists who were then invited to submit concepts for our review. Based on this proposal, we selected the artist Edo Odutegbe, not only for the potential artwork itself, but for an integral part of his proposal, an important community engagement component. With this community input, we expect to see significant design developments through that process, and we'll turn to both you and PDC once we have that proposal finalized. Now I'll turn it over to Edo.
Good evening, everyone. Please let me know if you can see my screen here.
Yes, we can see it.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me this evening. It's really a pleasure for me to introduce myself to the community board and the participants of this meeting and share a little bit about my background and my approach to public art. My name is Edo Odutegbe. I'm a polymedia artist. I live here in Brooklyn, New York. In addition to my own practice as an artist, I'm the director of Turnbull Townhouse Gallery in Manhattan, and I'm also a full-time faculty member in Brooklyn College. I'm the head of the sculpture program and also one of the co-deputies of the MFA program. Incidentally, this semester, I'm teaching a class that I created when I was hired into Brooklyn College a few years ago, and the class is called Public Art Interventions, Monuments, and Memorials. So I really believe that it's important to share new perspectives and new approaches to creating public art. With the next generation of artists. So it's something I find ways to teach my practice as well. My background is my undergraduate degrees in mechanical engineering from MIT. I have another degree in mechanical engineering with a focus in design from Stanford. And then I worked as an engineer for some time and also a consultant for visual artists that even took me out to the Venice Biennial. And then I wanted to focus on my own practice, and I pursued an MFA in creative practice from the University of Plymouth, which was between the UK and Berlin. I wanted to share just a couple examples of my artwork that I refer to as polymedia. I work with and through different mediums, including sculpture, performance, and new media. Really, all my work is about storytelling. It's about finding ways to recontextualize history. And share these things with the communities that I choose to engage. I view what I do as presenting a constellation of knowledge with lots of different topics as notes that people can use to enter a conversation. This is an installation of my artwork at the Carver Museum in Austin, Texas. Incidentally, when I was at that exhibition, I was asked to return towards the closing of this solo exhibition for a public kind of performance and community engagement process. What that turned into was reappropriating a decommissioned municipal swimming pool that was right next to the museum. So this is a painting of my graphic that's kind of similar to, you know, my artwork there hanging on the wall in the back. But I worked with a local capoeira group to develop performance where they improvise their choreography, alternating between Camara and Angola styles of capoeira based on where they were physically inside this installation, being these two tones of blue. There was a lot of conversation about Randall's Island and the updates earlier in this meeting. That was my first site for a public art project, was Randall's Island Park. In 2013, I was one of the artists that was commissioned as part of the Flow project, which was associated with the Bronx Museum Artists in the Marketplace project. This was my temporary installation. It was called Looping Back. It was essentially a three-dimensional puzzle that was clad with poplar tree bark. It's a social sculpture, so folks could stand on it, climb on it. There were a lot of folks who used it as a picnic area. I would come to visit this sculpture and find barbecue pits and remnants of, you know, social activity in the center. And that really thrilled me that it could be activated by different people as they wanted to. That led to my second public project. Both of these are temporary. This one was at Socrates Sculpture Park in Queens, New York. And I loved the social aspects of Looping Back, and I wanted to continue working in that way. So I developed Corner. And, you know, both these projects are part of something that I refer to as alien shrapnel, thinking about what happens when, you know, the remains of a future or ancient, you know, civilization emerge on our planet. You know, how do we deal with those things? How do we contend with their presence? But, you know, also this served as a bench. What you can't see in this photo is from the point of view of someone sitting on the bench, you're looking out over the East River. Over time, I was invited to participate in the Memorial to Enslaved Laborers project at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville. Now this project, the architects on record and the designers of this project are Holler and Yoon Architecture. But through their community engagement, and I'll talk about that a little bit here, through their community engagement, which was a very extensive process, they actually didn't design anything until they engaged the community. And one bit of feedback that they had when they created that form that you saw in the earlier slide was that the members of the community, including people who could trace their ancestors to people who were enslaved either at UVA or around Charlottesville, wanted a visual representation of Black people, especially of people who were enslaved by UVA. So I'm going to kind of jump back here because what we have here with this project is a really interesting social space rather than a sort of an iconic memorial. This memorial includes a gathering space for different types of reflection, community activism, and socializing, and also celebration. But, you know, how do we include in this design a visual presence? I'll share this.
It creates this sort of continuity. It like creates these strings between the names and the gashes. This project is important to me because it makes an intervention in history. The fact that it's located in a UNESCO World Heritage Site is a major victory for those who were enslaved here at UVA, and also for UVA is taking a stance about how they're transforming the narrative here at the university. I think UVA understands that it's an ongoing commitment, and that the memorial doesn't end their commitment to expanding the story of people who were enslaved here by the university and who helped build and establish the university. The memorial is one signifier of their efforts, but there will also be ongoing educational efforts and things that really change the fabric and culture of UVA.
It not only tells the story that we know, it participates in the unfolding of the story in the future to right past wrongs, and in that way becomes a symbol for equity and social justice forevermore.
I really wanted to share that with you because my process as an artist invited to participate in this memorial project involved going down to Charlottesville, making repeated trips to really spend time with the community, talk to them, hear their stories, hear stories about their families, about their ancestors, about their lives now, and observe what I saw around. You'll notice those quarry marks and the lines in stone. That was a local quarry in Virginia, in Culpeper, Virginia. Visiting schools, talking to students about different things. And from that, I was able to work with the design team and develop a language, a visual language that would be used to create a design in the memorial. That design was also informed by a technique that I used for one of my own artworks called Becoming Visible. This is not a photograph you see in the center. It's actually a photorealistic carving. So here's a detail of that. That I created of myself wearing a hoodie in response to the murder of Trayvon Martin, and also how a lot of people assumed a hoodie in their selfies on social media to reappropriate that as something that was negative, but also to transform it into a symbol of protest. I liken it to, my background is I'm Nigerian American, I liken it to this historical object you see here, which is a bronze statue of the Oba, or king of Benin. This vertical scarification or lines in their face are a form of ethnic taxonomy. So that process, because you can achieve really crisp and detailed photorealistic effects by carving, instead of applying an image through a photographic process or a painting process, was translated onto the memorial's exterior surface. And through my research at UVA, I learned about Isabella Gibbons. She was an African-American woman. She was enslaved by at UVA by William Barton Rogers, who was actually the founder of MIT. So, you know, my world is becoming closer and closer to this story as well. Isabella Gibbons was around during the time of emancipation in Charlottesville, and she went on to become an educator. So the community really wanted someone who exemplified triumph over despair. And Isabella Gibbons did just that. So we were able to develop a unique photorealistic carving process that could work on large scale in stone over really complex geometry. Here's a detail. And those are what the eyes look like. Now, this project has been completed. We haven't had a formal opening. We finished it in around February of 2020. So during the pandemic, of course, that we are still in, it's open to the public. So folks have went to visit it and whatnot, but we haven't had any formal programming, and we're waiting for that. Now I am going to share one of my own projects. It's actually under construction, and it will be installed maybe in April or May of this year. This is a project I call Peaceful Journey. It was a sculpture commission that I won from Alexander Development Group, who partnered with Arts Westchester as sort of a cultural programmer who helped them administer the process of selecting an artist. So this project is situated in front of a new construction in Mount Vernon, New York, in a neighborhood called Fleetwood. It's a neighborhood under transition. And of course, the presence of this new building will even introduce more transformation into that neighborhood. New residents, different folks coming from new areas, maybe other folks moving from around the region to live here. So I wanted to create something that really kind of addressed this idea of transformation, but I also wanted to think about what's my relationship to Mount Vernon. I grew up in upstate New York and Albany, listening to loads and loads of hip hop music, and Heavy D was someone who stood out, including other folks like Pete Rock and CL Smooth. I mentioned them because they were all from Mount Vernon. That kind of waterbed sound that they would call it is something I really grew to love. And it was really unique in that their message was positive. It was amazing to celebrate to and everything. And what I learned is that Heavy D was a real community icon. Everyone, even up to the mayor of Mount Vernon, really respects Heavy D. Although he has passed away, they're in touch with a lot of his folks in his community and his band members. And so by name, he has a song called Peaceful Journey. I wanted to name my sculpture Peaceful Journey as a tribute to Heavy D, and also to sort of speak to my relationship to Mount Vernon, but also speak to what Mount Vernon has really offered the whole world. So this sculpture here is sort of a triumphal archway. It's about 20 feet tall. It's made out of 3 primary materials, a solid 15,000 pound block of Vermont Fantastical marble. It's a metamorphic rock with these really interesting flowing lines in it. And then this archway starts primarily as stainless steel, and then it converts into Corten steel. Corten steel, like the Barclay Center here in Brooklyn, is a steel that weathers and changes in color over time. So the entire form in different ways speaks to this idea of transformation. Even though this is a really large, solid kind of structure, it's dynamic in many ways. And as you move through it, as you pass under it, what you will notice is that it pixelates the sky, and the shadows cast on the ground, and your view of the sky change as well. So it's a really interesting dynamic process, and one that an observer can put themselves in dialogue with the work. So, I'm sharing this just to kind of give you all a perspective of the things that I value in creating an artwork. And especially one thing I'll talk about here is these honeycomb patterns. You probably noticed some of them as the cross sections of the sculpture in Randall's Island Park. And you're seeing them again here. For me, it's a nod to biophilic design. It's a nod to biomimicry. Of course, the hexagonal patterns being inspired by beehives and things and structures of that nature. I think they're also metaphors for collective work. There are different ways for us to think about our ecology and our environment, and how to preserve it, and how to work towards sustainable futures. Those are some of the things I'm thinking about with this project on the Harlem River Greenway, because of its close proximity to water. And of course, all of our concerns, some of them voiced tonight, about rising sea levels and things of that nature, and how it might impact the lives of folks in New York City. So, so far, I've assembled a really great team to sort of augment my studio. I'm working with a visual designer, Mike DiCarlo. I've worked with him on several of the projects I've shared with you tonight, including Peaceful Journey. Zane Rodolfo, who's a sound designer, who's helping with some of the formal aspects of my project, and also Charles Matz and Associates, who will help with engineering, fabrication, and installation. So in some ways offering total project management. And also Cora Stone Company is another company I worked with on the UVA Memorial for Enslaved Laborers, but also on Peaceful Journey as well. So a lot of these are folks that I have a history with, especially more recent history. And their approach to this is just as sort of engaged and exciting as mine. So I'm really glad that I have this opportunity to work with them in this context. Community engagement is something that I value very much, and I really wanted to close on this slide and the next one to say that for me, this is an ongoing process. You know, since I'm an educator, I don't see this as, you know, when the sculpture is done, then we'll engage. I think there are opportunities to engage the community at every step, whether it be design or construction, installation, fabrication, or finally the presentation. I think all those are learning opportunities. They're opportunities for storytelling and sharing. Some places that I think I could target for community engagement include the National Jazz Museum in Harlem, Calabar Gallery, the Africa Center, Schomburg Center, Studio Museum of in Harlem, Dwyer Cultural Center, Harlem School for the Arts, PS 109, and of course CUNY, which I'm a part of. As I mentioned, you know, I'm really interested in this being an ongoing activity. I really want to develop relationships with arts, historical, and cultural organizations. For example, research at the Schomburg might inspire some of the form or some of the aesthetic decisions I make as I develop this sculpture. And I'm really interested in creating diverse programming options that include perhaps open town halls, performances at the site where the sculpture is situated when it's finally installed, but also conversations. And also any form of sort of STEM or STEAM learning opportunities, I think can also be incorporated into this process. As you saw in that video for UVA, I'm really open to talking a lot. I talk all the time, you know, at school and whatever. But for me, making presentations to cultural organizations, community organizations, and also to schools of any grade level is something I look forward to do, and just to continue getting in conversation with folks. So
yeah, we're running a little bit out of time, so just want to ask that we start to wrap it up here.
Absolutely. Thank you. Sorry for going over. There's just high level timeline. This is actually the last slide. So we're in the concept design phase right now, and also thinking about different ways that we could kick off the community engagement process. Later in this year and into 2022, we'll be doing the final design phase and moving into fabrication, and also changing the modes of community engagement as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you, and congratulations on being selected. It's great to hear about your background and all of your previous work. So thank you for being here and for presenting all of that to us. I think one good place to start in terms of community engagement, we're actually going to be talking about a letter that we're resubmitting for the park and pathway naming at this park. So Richard Toussaint is you know, a man that has had a deep role in the conception of the Harlem Greenway, is a person of color and unfortunately passed away. So we're looking to sort of, you know, celebrate him through this entire project. So I think that'll be a great element to focus on, and parts of our letter that are in support of the park and pathway naming speak to some of his involvements in the community that might be helpful in community engagement aspects. I know we have a couple hands raised. We are running low on time, so if everyone could keep their questions and comments brief. There are a couple questions I had from the project standpoint. Just generally, how much would a comfort station cost around about on the water? Just thinking in terms of necessary funding for that.
I would have to get back to you. I know a number from like a couple years ago for Manhattan, and that was like in the $4 or $5 million range. For some reason, Manhattan construction costs are higher than other boroughs. I could get back to you unless anyone else from Parks here knows, or EDC.
Yeah, just to comment, hi, Sarah's here. Generally the issue is whether there's a water and sewer line that can connect over there. And if there isn't, then that's the really high cost piece of the work. So, and we often just find that the costs of comfort stations just go up, and we really don't want it to eat up the budget for the rest of the site here, so.
Great, thank you. And just to confirm, will there not be a playground at all on the park unless additional funding is acquired?
I can start with this, and I don't know if there's anything to add to it. I think we're still at a fairly early part. We're working through the design and the budget, so rough estimates. I think we can definitely continue to explore whether there are ways that we can have play elements. But I think sort of figuring out the programming and costs right now.
Thank you. I'm just going back. So thank you so much for answering those questions. In terms of the ferry, you mentioned the time savings. What is considered enough of a time savings for the implementation of a ferry?
That is a great question. I don't know that off the top of my head, and I will get back to you. I don't want to give you a wrong answer.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, I just want to make the point that even 7 minutes is it could be a lot of time for someone commuting. So I understand that it's less of a distance from to get to Midtown, but just want to make sure that we can understand the time savings across other ferries to understand what why ours is not conceivable. Thank you. And just one last question from me. You mentioned the incorporation of maintenance paths on the park. Can you describe the need for that and what impact that will have on the future use of the park? And does that designate parts of the project will be marked as open space versus park space?
Yeah, I wonder, Len, maybe you can go back to like one of the slides between 16, 17, or 18. I can just, we are coordinating with DOT and TBDA just to figure out, what types of maintenance vehicles might be needed. But the way we do it is, they don't have their own designated route. We try to incorporate that into the pedestrian or bike pathways, just making sure that the way that those paths are built is, structurally strong enough to withstand, whatever load of trucks they're bringing in. Then switching gears to, I think, the question about parkland, open space, this came up last month, I think. I do want to, we did follow up, get more clarity on that. That was a new issue to me. Parks does intend on, sorry, let me just double check to make sure I'm saying this correctly. We do intend to dedicate this as parkland. So it will become parks, not just under our jurisdiction, but it will become parkland. Right now, the site is under SBS jurisdiction. There's also some portions that are DOT right of way that are underneath. I think some of the, you'll see some of the overpass and infrastructure there. Some of that is a DOT right of way. But we are going to be dedicating this as parkland, and it is not parkland until the city actually takes action and unequivocally intends and acts on establishing it as parkland. That's what the lawyers say. And so that is the plan. And this also actually relates to the issue of naming. I know we've gotten a lot of comments about like, why can't you just name it now? Or like, it's not technically our site yet, but we hear you. So a lot of this is when EDC completes the construction project, that is when we anticipate that the DCAS will then write a letter that transfers it over to Parks and will make clear that this will become dedicated parkland. Okay.
So just to clarify, when just repeating what you said, that when EDC completes their construction, then we'll go through a process to incorporate it as parkland.
Yes, we will dedicate it as parkland.
Great, thank you so much.
And then that's the point at which we could start talking about the name. So okay. If it seems like we're taking a long time, it's not that we're ignoring you. It's just that there's all the steps of it's not our property yet. So. Okay,
and so you mentioned that the construction will take 3+ years after design. So are we expecting that the park will not be named for 3 to 5 years from now?
Might be a while, yeah. I know there was discussion of naming the path to the north. So that is something that's already our property. So we can move on that piece, to my understanding.
Okay.
But unfortunately, we can't name something that isn't ours, and we don't want to take it until it's done. So it's a couple steps ahead.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think one of our concerns is, making sure that something gets done for the widow of Richard Toussaint to see, that something is happening. And I know we talked previously about just naming the pathway. We
Okay.
don't want to just name the pathway. We want to eventually have both named. So if we could get the pathway named earlier on in the process to, you know, share that with the widow of Richard Toussaint, that would be excellent. And then we could do the park naming down the road. I think that would be acceptable.
Got it. Thank you. Is that what's in your letter?
Yes.
Basically, okay, terrific. Okay, thank you. And that goes through the borough. We'll make sure they get it. And we definitely, Francis has been making this point clear for a long time. So we've definitely heard it. So
Great.
yeah, thank you.
So much, Sarah.
Yeah.
All right, that's enough from me. Connie, you have your hand raised.
Hi. Before I throw a couple of comments at Alda, which are really just quick comments, you can just take note of them. I do want to thank Ito, and I'm seeing a lot of names on the attendees from the who were involved in the very comprehensive process of selecting the artist. Suzanne, in particular, Gail, Novella from Schaumburg. I'm sure I'm missing one or two other people, but I do want to thank them. They did a really excellent and very comprehensive job. And Ito, I think they, in the end, I think the right man for the job was selected. So really looking forward to it. Alda, just a couple of quick comments. Under the bridge. Something that we've become very familiar with in the last couple of years since the 2017 and 2018 workshops is how adults do fitness in parks and in huge numbers, calisthenics equipment. And in particular, because of the opportunity under the bridge is that the large groups of people will come into the park sort of at odd times, whether it's raining, snowing, you know, really intense sun. And the idea of under the bridge for the calisthenics equipment, which actually would afford a little bit of protection. And I'm particularly sensitive to this just because we have this really incredible amount, especially in the past year, of adults, seniors working out in the parks. So I really think that that's become a very big need in this neighborhood. The other thing I just want to quickly mention is going back to the comfort station. There was talk very early on about the comfort station actually being placed inside of the Crack is Whack playground. And I do believe, and I could be mistaken, there might have even been a small amount of money going back to the rezoning where Melissa Mark Viverito had designated, I believe it was just $1 million, so not nearly enough for a comfort station in Crack is Whack. But the reason I'm mentioning that is Crack is Whack is really adjacent to this greenway. So it would be a place of accommodating, maybe less expensively, a comfort station that would be easily accessible to people going to the greenway.
Okay, I think that's helpful. I know that you had mentioned Crack is Whack in an earlier meeting. I had looked back at some of our concept plan discussions and only saw the footprint in the sort of landing area, but we'll definitely, it's helpful to hear that you think that there may have been some funding designated during rezoning. We'll look into it. That's helpful. I think that level of detail, we can try to track that down. And then just quickly on your first point, I just want to clarify or confirm. So you're supportive of the adult fitness underneath the bridge?
Absolutely, particularly the calisthenics equipment, because we, in Marcus Garvey Park, we just do not have enough of it. And you know, at times there are 100 people literally standing in line waiting to use that equipment.
Wow. Yeah.
And this is this kind of activity activates the park 12 months of the year, morning, afternoon, and into the night. In Marcus Garvey Park, they work out until 10, 11 o'clock at night. So it's, you know, it's really sort of organic programming and
Right.
just requires a little bit of equipment.
Great, great. And we
We
thought
hope
under the
that they
bridge,
will
that way
come.
it'll stay dry too. So
Yes,
without
exactly.
the rain and snow. So, okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Connie.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions from the board? Go ahead, Debbie.
This is an amazing, project, and this is something that we've been, having the vision for a very, 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 very long time. And, making sure that Richard is honored in a way that deserves is very important to me. And I think I get very concerned where, you come with all the plans and that just doesn't happen, or it hasn't happened yet. So I just want to reiterate the need to honor this man's work. 20 years, 30 years that he put into this vision deserves 20 or 30 years of honoring in a magnificent way, because folks are of his generation are, we're losing them, we're losing our elders, we're losing the story behind this. And that needs to be clearly cemented into this. And what I wanted to also say, congratulations to Ito, because that, I am super excited about this. And I would just encourage you to get in contact with the Caribbean Cultural Center, African Diaspora Institute, because they're like physically the closest to this space. They're located on Lexington Avenue. Yes, they came back into the community about 5 years ago, but they've been doing programming for the past 39 years, 40 years. So there's a significant history there, and a significant opportunity that is an East Harlem voice that's closer to the space. I just kind of let Melody Capote know that this is something that you'll probably be getting a call from her, like tomorrow, probably. But this is an absolute amazing project. And the other thing is, in terms of honoring and coming from a place of ancestral wisdom and reconciliation, it's important also to think about the Lenape, Indians that this belong to in some shape or form, and while, we talk about modernization and all this other stuff, it comes from the stem and from the root, and it just has to be done right, because we just have to honor some of the mistakes that have occurred. So that's where I'm coming from, but I'm also very grateful and very excited and super hyped, to know that, and I can hear Richard in my head, I had the amazing opportunity to be on the board with him, to be part of those discussions. I still got paperwork in my basement from stuff that we did, 20 years ago. So I think it's just really important. And I don't think you want people mad at you. Just saying.
We agree. Thank you for the letter that you guys are sending. We'll see if there's anything we can do to expedite, considering all the issues we have, but we'll try.
Thank you, Sarah. We still have to vote on it today, so.
Okay.
And thank you, Debbie, for your comments. Our Vice Chair, Xavier Santiago, thank you for joining us. Please go ahead with your question.
Thank you very much, and thank you for this wonderful information and presentation. Truly appreciate it. Debbie, thank you for mentioning the Lenape Indians. The island of Manhattan, which was Manhattan, is for the name. That is why we have this island that we do today. And I think honoring all of those from past, present, and being able to find our way into the future. And I just, again, the committee will take its vote. I'm pretty certain that if it comes before the full board, we'll reaffirm. And this is something that we have fought doggedly for and will continue to do so. And we appreciate your willing to engage in any capacity we could work together to make this a reality sooner than later, in spite of the economic downturn, and hopefully the federal government will get the assistance we need as a city. But please, at every stage of the way, keep us plugged in, and we will do the same. But this is something that is the highest priority. I don't know if anyone's still on who can comment. Let me see, hold on, just on the ferry and the analysis, and if that report and study could be shared.
We have it.
Because you do, okay, great. Because one of the things, if it's just shaving 7 minutes on, one of the things that I would like to, as a recommendation or ask more poignantly, is planning for the future, because I understand, again, with the budget process and how that plays in part year to year, but with the growth that we expect to have, especially with the next phase of the Second Avenue subway, I think it would behoove all of us with these different development projects to look at a long-term investment stratagem that will afford us developing the ferry service, because it will be only a matter of time. And I think investment in that infrastructure is crucial to our community success. And I think and as a question following up, where have other projects throughout the island of Manhattan and the city been put on hold or deferred due to the budget? And if so, where are those that are receiving the same deferrals or pauses, if you will?
Yes, thank you for that. And yes, so we have shared the feasibility study with this committee, and hopefully, and we're happy to send that again. And we are expanding the system now. There is work still continuing. We'll be launching in Memorial Day weekend, the Staten Island route. We have a South Brooklyn route. We have a route that is going out further into the Bronx. I will have to get back to you on the other questions you have around budget, because I am not completely sure about the budget constraints around this, but happy to report back.
Okay, and one follow-up, then what other projects are they experiencing the same pauses or recommendations not to fund at this time, and feasibility studies that in regards to development with the ferry system?
So you're asking what other projects have been paused because of, what other ferry projects have been paused because of funding issues?
If any of projects when it comes to transportation of this type or otherwise.
I can't speak to other transportation. I could just tell you about the ferry system, because of the routes that we are launching, the new routes we are launching. Those were part of previous pre-pandemic conversations and budget. So we did have to pause some of the work that we had to do during the pandemic, and we have resumed that as of recently. So there are delays in our construction, but none of the work in regards to NYC Ferry has paused completely due to budget issues.
Okay, so just ours here in this community. The engagement portion, yeah.
Right. The reason why we have not done, we have not moved forward with an East Harlem route is not because of not directly because of funding. I think it's three parts to that. The amount of money we would need for something here would be extraordinarily more than any of the other sites, due to the repairs that are needed here, on top of the time saving. And let me see if I pull up, there was one more remark around this. So it's not just because of budget constraints.
Okay, it's fine. I don't want to take up any more of the committee's time, so please, if you can send a response to our chair of this committee, and we can have a dialogue, that'd be great. And you can circle back with those additional answers.
Happy to.
Thank you so
Jessica.
much, Xavier. And I just wanted to say again, congratulations to Edo, and thank you so much to everyone from NYC EDC and Parks. We really appreciate, I can tell that you are hearing what we're saying and incorporating it and coming back to us with updates frequently, just like we asked. So, we're really excited to see this project progressing, and I just wanted to express gratitude for the process so far this year. It's been great, and we look forward to continuing the conversation with you and being a part of this throughout the process. So thank you so much.
You're welcome, Jessica. We look forward to seeing you in the next couple of months. We'll be back.
Great.
Yeah, thank you very much, you guys. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Carly is going to re-establish us. Thank you. Great. So I think I've fallen off of the script now, so I'm gonna just wing it. The old business that we have two items. You should have received drafts of these items ahead of the meeting for review. So one of them is the DSNY expense budget discussion, which we have a draft resolution ready to go. If anyone has any comments on that, here's my script. All right, I think we're good on the script. I see Russell has his hand raised. Go ahead, Russell.
Good evening, everybody. I see in this resolution, one thing I paid notice to that I've always been opposed to is when we haven't found a permanent spot location in one of the permanent spots for relocating a permanent sanitation place here. And I want to be able to address that separately, not to let that move forward, because I've been an advocate for trying to put this thing on Randall's Island for a number of years, and I don't want to lose sight of that. Just to make note of that, because we're fighting for money now, equity in dollars, which makes all the sense in the world. But I just want to make that notation.
Thank you, Russell. Do you recommend that we take off the mentions of the sanitation garage and have a separate resolution for that maybe next month?
It could be, I mean, let the board decide on that. It could be that we're acknowledging, that could be taken multiple ways, that we are acknowledging or letting them know that it hasn't, a permanent location hasn't been identified yet, to making sure that we know that. To omit it, that could be a discussion point.
Okay. Perhaps we could add in this whereas just a note that I think we mentioned the points of agreement and that being part of it. Yes. Okay. And do we mention that? Okay. Yeah, that there's not been any permanent long-term facility designated.
Okay. Have this a part of a longer discussion, moving to keep the conversation going.
Right.
Now we're addressing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. Are there any other comments? Go ahead, Michelle.
I do like the idea of a follow-up letter discussing separately the sanitation. And I'm trying to move the letter with my cursor. I was like, it's not working. Why can't I get it to go back? I like that follow-up idea, but to also have it with this letter, okay. I think is important.
Sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once. Are there any other questions or comments from the board on this resolution? Okay. Let's see what we have to do here.
Hello, Jessica. I got to go. Is there anything that you need to speak to me about?
No, we have the letter for the Richardson Park naming, but we'll go ahead and send that to you afterwards.
Okay.
Great. Debbie, did you have anything else for Sheena? You said you had a question. Okay. All right. Thank you, Sheena. Have a good night.
Okay.
Okay. So if there are no further comments, everyone has had the chance to review this. I think that it's a great idea to continue this conversation on the sanitation garage, which we can include in this letter or this resolution and follow up on whether or not it's next month or after our CB8 joint meeting. So we'll keep that on our list for old business. But are there any further comments, or I'm opening the floor for any potential motions?
Do you need a motion?
Yes, for this resolution.
I make a motion to accept the resolution as written with the corrections as well.
I second the emotion. Michelle, what's your comment?
Great. And I just want to clarify, there were no adjustments.
Okay.
Made. Okay. Can we just restate the motion? Sorry.
I make a motion to accept the resolution as is.
And Michelle.
Second.
Second. Great. Let's see. Carly, could you
I'll call
take?
the roll.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Collier, she left early. Elliott.
Yes.
Encarnacion. Is she on still?
No, it's just us 4 cats.
Uh-oh.
1, 2,
That's what my mom's
3.
saying. It's just the same 4 cats.
No, you have some. You have some. Okay, so she left. B. Connie.
Yes.
Mastrota.
Yes.
McCullough.
Yes.
And then Quinones. I know you made it.
I made the motion.
Oh yeah. Okay. Schuler
Yes.
and Wiltshire Clement.
I seconded it.
I know, but it's okay. Motion carries.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Yeah, that's the thing that I've been struggling with too. I think even if you make or second the motion, you still have to say yes or no. But thank you all for that. And then the second item is the letter in support of Richard Toussaint Park and pathway naming, just resubmitting this to bolster our previous letters and in preparation for naming ceremonies, things to be going on in June of this year. Are there any comments on this this letter? Michelle, you have your hand up? Oh, go ahead, Connie.
The only thought I have is, well, there's 2 things. I always use the expression, choose your battles, especially with a city agency, any of them, not just parks. Maybe it would be in our best interest right now to send a letter requesting the pathway be renamed, but then stating that we will, when the time is, when the park is opened officially, or when Parks Department takes ownership of it, we would then like to present the request for renaming the park. So this way we could get the renaming of the pathway now, or sometime in the very near future. And Parks currently has on their website, you can actually, anyone can log on and suggest a renaming. So maybe we should encourage all of us and everyone we know to do that. And get the pathway renamed now. It just feels like a timely way of moving forward. My only hesitation about that is we don't want them to think, since they've renamed the pathway, that we don't want the park named.
Right. I think that's the biggest concern. I know we had a motion, when I first became chair, that I got a little bit of hot water because we agreed to just do the pathway and then come back later for the park. And I think, Xavier, I don't know if you want to speak to this on a more global scale for the committee goal or the board's goals for the park and pathway. I don't know if he's there. Okay, but
so maybe we just state in the letter that we would like the pathway renamed now, and then the park renamed when it can be, which would be when the jurisdiction is transferred over to the Parks Department.
Yeah, like a phase 1 and a phase 2.
Yes, yeah.
So, hi guys, this is Malik. We actually tried that as well, and the Madam Chair and I would say the executive board, along with a lot of the I guess seniors, in our community board. When I say seniors, I mean members that's been here for a while, have take the part of kind of what parks normally do. and they didn't want to even give them the benefit of the doubt of us trying to name the pathway right now without the park being named Richard Toussaint. You know, like you know, in hindsight, we would think that that's fine, but we just don't. I mean, from my understanding, they didn't. You know, everyone total, as far as longtime members, you know, have really just wanted to get that one thing done, as far as total the park, and not just try to, because we don't want, you know, as Connie said, you know, we don't want them to think that just even if we give them, you know, oh, you already got this, you know, why not, you know, why you got to have that too. So that was kind of the thought process, I believe. And like Jessica said, we did try to do it that way, but immediately, you know, everyone, you know, thought about it, and we thought about it, and it, you know, it does make sense. So I just wanted to, you know, bring that up to you guys.
It makes sense. You know what I mean? It makes sense, but then the
Hold
city
on.
sense is completely different.
I just want to go back to the raising the hands because
Sorry.
Russell has his hand patiently raised. So I'm going to go to Russell first.
I'd like to add to that. I'm one of the long-termers. So, I mean, I'm willing to, I mean, I appreciate what Connie's approach, but this is, I think we gotta go all or nothing of this one or we'll lose. Anyway, so I don't think we can afford the time to go through this back and forth for years with uncertainty and then have to come back to the table and say win or lose, have to come back to the table again. You're talking about administration is definitely going to change, personalities definitely change. You can't, I wouldn't want to risk that. I'd rather make it known. This is what we're looking for. Allow them to withdraw.
Thank you, Russell. And it sounds like from the presentation and the conversation that we just had that they're in an understanding of what we're asking for. Go ahead, Debbie.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Russell. You know, I think the lessons that we've learned is that you just have to stay on the larger goal. Even though phase 1, phase 2 makes common sense, you know, but I think that we've seen enough projects to know that, well, it's like you got the sidewalk, you know, you can't have the street. So, or things fall by the wayside. So, or like, let's throw them this chip so that we can keep the table. So, you know, I don't know. And like you said, it's one of the long haulers that, you know, it's like, oh, when? And sometimes you just gotta like shake them up a little bit, but I think that you're right. It just has to get done.
Russell, you had unmuted yourself for 1 second. Okay.
I mean, we just have to do it. We can't risk it. Can't risk it.
Connie, go ahead. Oh, sorry, Russell.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm finished.
The only thing that I will say, my experience with parks, and most of my experience is face-to-face. And, you know, when they say no, you go, okay, fine. And then you ask them the exact same question moments later, or a month later, or 2 or 3 weeks later. And eventually they think it's their idea and suggest it to you. You know, it really is that thing. They hear it so many times that eventually they think it's their idea, and you know, and you go, "Oh, what a great idea!" You know, the with the change of administration that's about to happen, you know, right now there is an opportunity for renaming and naming sites and parks. I don't think that's a long-term possibility. Parks normally never ask for anyone's opinion. They also have a set of rules in place for how parks are named. And at the moment, Richard Toussaint would not qualify. So, you know, I'll go with whatever the entire committee wants to do. And I think we should push both forward, but I think maybe we should push for the, you know, for the pathway to happen now so that we don't lose it when the administration changes. When Commissioner Silver is no longer commissioner, and when this sort of current fad to name things after Black people. That's going to go away. It's not going to last forever. And I wouldn't want to see us lose that opportunity.
Well, could I speak?
Yes, go ahead, Russell.
Okay, I don't understand. This is not Richard Toussaint qualifying as a Black person, first of all. It's Richard Toussaint as a Harlemite with his love and passion, like the letter stated. And I believe right now, it might be, so others could, think about it or support it or give me a feedback. Right now, we have more momentum by more people than we've ever had to be able to address this. We've been addressing this issue as just our own concern. Right now, as a part of a bigger picture, and I think we should use that as a leveraging aspect and the timing. This new movement of renaming this the parks department name, rename 10 parks. This is not a part of that at all. This is a standalone concern, a standalone project that started in the 90s. So this is not a new fad. This is a long-term project. I think we should use our momentum of all the factors and move forward with that.
Thank you, Russell. I just have a quick question. Do you think it would be worth, this is a question for everybody. Do you think it would be worth adding to the first paragraph to sort of at least let, in terms of a timeline that the pathway be named in 2021 and that the park be named at the most immediate available opportunity?
Yeah. I do want to clarify one thing. When I said that he, there is a set of rules, and it has to do with if somebody passes away, they're not immediately eligible. It actually takes several years. I don't know the
3 years. 3 years.
Okay, yeah. So
he qualifies. We've been working a long time on this.
Okay. Great. Thank you all.
You're absolutely right. We should just clarify that in the first paragraph.
So perhaps we could add, Carly, let's see. We understand that the pathway is currently eligible for naming, I don't know, and advocate that advocate that the pathway be named in 2021. And then say, with the understanding that the park cannot be named until, I don't know, let's see, what do you think? Kind of spit stuff out here.
I think that the terminology that she used was something like currently the jurisdiction of the site is not with the Parks Department.
Right.
And then upon completion of it, then it becomes the property that's under the jurisdiction of parks. And at that time,
right,
it can be named.
I hesitate to put anything too specific in case, in the case that they were wrong or that we're wrong. So maybe we could just say that the pathway be named in 2021 and the park be named as
How about when the park is
eligible for naming?
Eligible for naming, that Richard Toussaint is
immediately
named that the park is given.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Michelle. And Russell, you still have your hand up. I don't know if you had anything to add. No. Debbie, you have your hand up. Debbie, you're on mute. Sorry, I didn't realize.
I'm a bureaucrat in denial, and I work for the state now, and I'm just wondering, could they pull some stuff?
I know.
That says, well, you've already, we don't name the consecutive areas or something after the same person. Because that's, let me tell you, that's the bureaucratic answer right there, that they could pull. So I think that needs to be explored, verified, and then we keep pushing, because it I don't know, my little man is talking on the side. It's kind of like they may push back on that and say, that we're limiting the opportunities for other the opportunities for diversity, celebrating the diversity of the community, blah, blah, blah. And the other thing is that if the African burial ground goes up, a lot of people are gonna make claims. They're gonna stake claims to a lot of portions of that piece, that whole project. So I would work to verify that twist couldn't occur.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure how to do that though, because they've already brought that up before. Go ahead, Carly.
I'm wondering if, I guess this is more just technical for the letter. I'm wondering if we should put this part about naming it in phases at the end so that we can build the case first for like why it's so important that it's named for him.
I agree.
Because I do agree with Debbie, and maybe that's something I can. I mean, we tried getting that information, but it all seems very arbitrary. It is arbitrary, these naming rules. But I also feel, and I'm not a committee member, but I also feel that same worry that they will try to, take it away from us because of the technicality.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think you need to look for a precedent. You see, find other examples of, let's say, a street and something else that's named after the same person, that you can say, you did it over there, and you didn't have a problem, and this is what we want.
Yeah, we'll look into that.
They change the rules all the time, because it's like, I remember when they named the street after Percy Sutton, he was still alive, but they named something after him. So it's just, it's just bureaucratic stuff that kicked in.
Right. Okay, so just, I know Russell, you still have your hand up, so I just want to check in and make sure that you don't have anything to add. Okay. I think we should keep the first sentence that you had. We understand the pathway is currently eligible for naming and advocate that the pathway be named in 2021 with the park naming to follow as soon as possible. I don't know if there's anything to color that at all. Does that make sense to everyone, or? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion on this, and then we'll follow up about the, I don't want to not have both park and pathway included, as we've run into that previously. So we will follow up on Park's opinion about it and keep you all updated. But for now, I think this is a good step to reconfirm ahead of June and see how they respond. Any further changes or adjustments to this? I will entertain a motion. Go ahead, Russell. You're on mute, Russell.
I make a motion to accept this letter as with all its corrections. Renaming Richard Toussaint Park and Richard Toussaint Way.
Thank you, Russell. Is there a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Francis.
Okay, I'll call the roll and I will call both the motion and the person who seconded it. Okay, so Elliot,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Mastrota,
Yes,
McCullough,
Yes.
Quinones,
Yes.
Schuler,
Yes.
and Wiltshire Clement.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I know we've been coming back to this for a long time, so I'm hopeful that we'll get what we want. But I appreciate all of you and all of the work that we've done together and before as we're moving this forward. So thank you very much. Is there any new business? Oh, I see a hand raised in the attendees. It's John Green. Go ahead, John.
Good evening, everybody. John Green from the Budget and District Needs Committee. Want to ask, are there any questions that you need answers from my committee? I try to do this just in case if there's any questions, we can get the answers to you as quickly as possible.
Thank you, John. Are there any questions? I think we just have this sanitation resolution that we just passed in the committee regarding the budget. I don't think there's any others unless anyone has anything else.
And I also have one question.
Okay.
Okay, now I heard earlier that in order for a street to be named, the person has to be deceased for 3 years.
yes, that is correct.
Okay, unless there's some outstanding exceptions, but I understand, because actually the thing is I was looking at 101st Street between Lexington and Park because Cicely Tyson grew up on that block, and I was thinking about starting a campaign to get the street named after her.
Go ahead, Debbie. You muted yourself.
I muted myself, of course. You can name a street. The person doesn't have to be dead 3 years for a street to co-name a street. I think that's for a park. That's the difference. So the street, you can name 6 months after they're dead, as long as you follow the work of what the community board prescribes. And each community board has a different process, which is very interesting.
I know what you mean, Debbie, because actually there is a street in Queens that's named after a living person.
Right, and I'm one of the committee members that's working to name the street after Cicely Tyson. So, you know, on a separate note, it's been extremely difficult collecting signatures during this time of COVID. Getting access to buildings has been absolutely frightening for folks and very difficult. And that's why we have the online petition, and then we have the regular ones. And we haven't been getting as much. The signatures collection has been really problematic, and we have to figure out how to move forward on that. So you can name a street after someone immediately after their death. And then for a park, there's a 3-year wait period.
Okay, thanks, Debbie.
Yeah, Debbie, feel free to give me a call because I'm on the Public Safety and Transportation Committee, and I work with those with that procedure, and I can give you some assistance.
Yeah, I talked to Jose, you know, and he kind of wanted some guidance, and I'll definitely reach out to you. It's not a problem.
Look at that cross committee collaboration.
All about naming. It's about naming. So
Awesome. Thank you all. We'll move on. Thank you, John, for being here and for all of your work on the budget committee. Do you want to make this announcement, Carly?
Sure. So yeah, I sent this to both the Parks Committee and then just the full board. Oh wow, this text is all messed up. I'm sorry. But the mayor announced the launching of the community engagement effort for the New York City's first comprehensive environmental justice for all report. They're currently accepting public comment, and they're accepting it through April 30th. There is a website where you can learn more. And if you have any questions about it, feel free reach out to me, I can send you more information. East Harlem was designated one of these environmental justice areas. So I want to be sure that, yeah, just residents are part of that engagement process. And I am keeping my eye out to see if there are any other future opportunities for engagement. And I want to reach out to them too, to see if maybe we can bring them to the committee, so that maybe the committee can take action if that's what you want. But yeah, so feel free to make public comment. And I think someone has their hand raised.
Yeah,
Connie,
go ahead.
After sitting through that very long environmental justice study explanation meeting, the only note I made was that perhaps as a committee, we should create our list of 10. Okay, everyone's nodding their head. So yeah, I think we should do that. We should create our own list of 10 things, or however many things we want to put in there.
Yeah, I think I know our next meeting is potentially a joint committee meeting with CB8, but I think if we have to have these comments in by April 30th, we should make this an agenda point for next meeting, and plan to explore a resolution or whatever it is moving forward. So Connie, would love your input on from your experience hearing all of that and your main takeaways. Perhaps at you can email everyone on the committee, or we can make space for that at the next meeting, and make a decision together.
Okay.
Thank you, Connie. Debbie, you have your hand up again, and then we'll go to Michelle. You're on mute, Debbie.
I've been on Zoom too much.
Okay.
I've been on Zoom all day. I'm zoning out. I think that I can also use this as, for April 24th, Earth Day event, maybe to solicit comments. And then we can, I can send them to the folks as well. And that can help us, we probably would have crafted our stuff by then, but then it could be helpful.
Completely agree. And it's a great thing to promote on Earth Day. It's a great idea. Thank you, Debbie. Michelle?
I wanted to find out, to come up with a question for the 10 questions. Did you ask, do we have homework?
Connie, could you expand on the 10 points?
So there was essentially as a East Harlem community, we could come up with a list of environmental justice issues that we want to see addressed. And, I think there's some very obvious things, and, the sanitation pollution might be one of them. Another thing might be, the flooding issues, like our parks flood as if they're like lakes. But if, I'm wording it in a very clumsy way, but if we make a list of things in that vein, whether it's 10 or 20 or 3, doesn't, I feel like that list should come from us rather than from the results of the study. And I think if it comes from the committee, a comprehensive list of what we think, I think they would take it seriously.
Okay, like tree plantings around and how the trees are being kept up and trimmed and whatnot and things like that.
Yeah.
So I think it deals, environmental resiliency in the event of a catastrophic event, and Jessica, correct me if I'm wrong, I think East Harlem is very ill prepared. If we have a Sandy event, East Harlem is going to be underwater, essentially. And the high ground would be, where I live, or Marcus Garvey Park, and those areas flood when there's a little bit of rain. So where would people go in the event of a catastrophic event? And tree coverage is definitely an issue. It's the amount of trees, particularly like along Lexington Avenue. And they always use the excuse that, well, there's a subway there, they can't plant trees, but that's not really true as far as I understand. They can plant trees. So yeah, things along those lines, like what would make our environment healthier.
Yep, that's
And
a
Carla,
great.
I just wanted to say thank you that you brought up the bathroom issue earlier and found that money so that they could think that they got the idea themselves later on.
I didn't want to call anybody out, but the $1 million has already been taken away from Cracker's Whack and put into the Harlem River Greenway. But I think it's an opportunity. They won't remember that they did that. And so they'll go, oh yeah, there was $1 million for a bathroom. So it was a way of trying to get the $1 million back. It's a start for a bathroom. And it would be probably $4.5 million to build it in Cracker's Whack.
But you made the little edge, you made a dent in the, there's no money for a comfort station. You made a dent and I truly appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're very welcome. I had to go digging through a whole bunch of notes to find that $1 million.
Awesome. Well, let's keep finding those little things we can prove their own points for them. But yeah, great job, everyone. Go ahead.
Yeah, just to that point, when we, and I mentioned this to you, Jessica, a while ago, but when the committee, back before I even started working here, approved the tennis center on Randall's Island, there was some, like, in the letter, there was an agreement that there was, that the tennis center would put $1.5 million into parks in East Harlem. And I did some digging and that never happened. So there's another 1.5 that we can continue to fight for.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, let's keep that on old business then and keep bringing it up. Great. So let's prepare to really look at the Environmental Justice for All report. Everything we all have said is completely accurate. There's a lot that we can do, especially as interior drainage is a huge problem in our neighborhood, as the resiliency studies have shown us. And we can do all the work on the Esplanade, but we'll still have interior work to do in the neighborhood for that. So we'll compile a list. If everyone could just send me any ideas via email and CC Malik and Carly, and then we'll start compiling that and send out hopefully a draft resolution ahead of next meeting. Is there anything else, Carly? That's it, right? All right. Something. If there are no objections, we will adjourn the meeting. Seeing no further business. Oh, the meeting is adjourned at 9:12.
I just wanted to say something real quick. I wanted to thank some of the board members that came on to my father's event last week. I really appreciate some of the board members that were able to attend and join in and celebrate my father's birthday. So I really appreciate that, everyone. Thank y'all.
He gave me a hard time.
Francis, Francis, I love you, right?